Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, a place where you can come to get what you need to move yourself forward. Hey, it's Mary Baker, and welcome to episode 135. What we do to keep people out. Self-abandonment, rescuing, and other fun behaviors. Now that title is a little tongue-in-cheek, I know, but for a reason, because all month we've been focusing on connection, why we need it, what healthy connection looks like versus unhealthy, and why it's so important, and yet why so many of us aren't great at it and we can really struggle with it. Last week we talked about our first classrooms, our childhood. We talked about how the boundary issues that happened meant that our sense of self was threatened, or our sense of emotional safety and trust and our ability to have a close, connected adult relationship was distorted for us. This week, I want to focus on things that we do because we grew up feeling unsafe, and how some of these fear-based coping skills make it so difficult for us to have the close, vulnerable relationships we want to have. Now, some of these topics we've touched on before, but I think they bear repeating. Two reasons. One, maybe it didn't sink in the first couple times. And number two, there are things that can creep up no matter where we are in our journey. So it's always good to be reminded in a loving way and to keep an eye out for them. Well, the umbrella of the ways that we used fear-based coping skills is all about self-abandonment in our relationships. Now, you hear so much about people growing up being abandoned, having abandonment issues, quote unquote. We're pretty familiar with that. But what happens is, in your adult relationships, you can end up showing signs of self-abandonment. And we're going to talk about what that means today, where it comes from, and how to stop doing that to yourself. One of the ways that we abandon ourselves and mess up our relationships by playing out control issues is rescuing. Rescuing means caring too much for someone else, doing for others what they ought, should, and could do for self. There are times, absolutely, when someone needs rescuing, when there is an absolute emergency, when something awful happened out of their control and they really need our help, when they're literally drowning and they need a life raft. Okay, that's rescuing. But what I'm talking about today is rescuing people from having to sit in natural consequences of their choices. Enabling goes hand in hand with that. Doing for others that they don't want to do for self, that they don't want to make changes in their life so that they can do for self. So because they basically lack the emotional maturity and the commitment to really do for self. And here's the thing, you can get a lot of self-esteem, it's false self-esteem, out of rescuing. It's very powerful. I think it can be all about the power and identity that comes from the ability to save others from themselves, from their bad choices, from them allowing other people to disrespect them, abuse them, take advantage of them. The thing is your ability to rescue can become how you see yourself, and you can get a lot of power, and it's false empowerment from that. But this becomes really unhealthy because then you think you can save them, and you think you have all this power, and you can fix it, and you can make things happen. You can help them become better people. You can help their life get better. But to your own detriment often. And as we've talked about before, we're really not rescuing them. We're rescuing ourselves from that awful reality that perhaps others may never want to get better. They may never want to set boundaries with others, with themselves. They may never want to face reality. They don't want to be the partner, the responsible kid, the brother, or the neighbor we would love to have and really need to have, I would argue. They're just not ready, and they may never be ready. But as long as we do for them, they never have to learn to see if they're ready or not, or learn how to take care of themselves. And rescuing puts a power differential in the relationship immediately. And if you're the rescuer, you have that sense of power, although control is an illusion, right? The person really pulling the strings is the person you're trying to rescue, if you look at that deeply enough. What you're trying to control will always control you. And when we're rescuing, we keep people at arm's length. That's not being vulnerable. And that's not connecting with emotional honesty, with truth, and with boundaries. Another way we keep people at arm's length is people-pleasing. Trying to control the impression that they have of us. Trying to avoid conflict by saying yes to things we don't want to do. By being what other people need us to be. And subverting what we really think and feel and need in the process. Switching gears at the last minute because they call you and they want to do something, even though you had something totally different planned for yourself. Big picture, it's sad when people look over the years and realize that the dreams that they had and the things they really wanted to do and have and be for their life went on a shelf or went to the wayside because they were so focused on their partner or on their friend or their family or their kids, taking care of them, focusing outside of themselves onto others, living other people's dreams, and or being caught up in someone else's chaos, because if they set boundaries, there might be awful conflict, there might be rejection, and ultimately maybe the death of the relationship. So people-pleasing is all fear-based. It's terribly emotionally dishonest. I mean, there's no way to be vulnerable and connect with someone and have a healthy relationship if we're people-pleasing, because we're not being authentic. We're putting on that false self that they want to hear or see, or we want them to hear or see. So people-pleasing, in essence, is fear of just being ourselves, and whoever doesn't like it, doesn't like it. I mean, all of this stuff is about avoidance, right? Avoiding reality, avoiding your true feelings, your deep knowing that this doesn't feel right, but doing it anyway. It's about taking your eyes off yourself and off your truth, off of what you need, and off of what you've always valued or wanted. Then ironically or comically, depending on how you want to look at it, becoming resentful of them. Of course, if you're rescuing someone, you can't not resent them eventually, because they're not going to do what you want them to do. And you're not getting anything back in that relationship from them. You're not getting needs met. And then resentful when you're people-pleasing because you're not taking care of you in the process. This is not an equal partnership or an equitable relationship. And how dare they not appreciate how you have bent over backwards, gave up this, gave up that, gave up your time and energy, maybe even gave up years of your life. It's like we can be angry at them when we did it. It's not about the other person anymore. As you do this work, you will become more and more aware of that this has always been about you. And how it's never been safe to be vulnerable. I saw this great quote from livewellwithsharonmartin.com, and I'll put this in the show notes. She talks about self-abandonment. She says it begins in childhood, which I agree. She says it's likely that your parents or other influential adults didn't meet your emotional and or physical needs. They abandoned you emotionally or physically or both, causing you to feel unworthy and unlovable. And then as adults, we tend to repeat these types of patterns, she says, because they're familiar. So, and I can attest to this, sitting with enough people over enough years. She says we repeatedly choose partners and friends who mistreat, take advantage of, or don't support us. And we do the same to ourselves. We don't know how to be there for ourselves, she says, because no one was truly there for us as children, end quote. Wow. So true. So what does it mean to really abandon yourself? What we mentioned a moment ago, putting your individual interests and your goals on a shelf, setting them aside, rationalizing, say, we'll get to me later. Let me focus on this right now. We have a crisis going on. That can wait. Okay, so I want you to take a few moments and answer some of these questions or pay attention to whatever comes up for you and see if there's anything you want to look at here. See how good you feel about it. See if anything brings up some concern for you. All I ask is that you gut level with yourself and be honest. We can't change anything we're not straight with. So when it comes to your individual interests and goals, how would you say you were on track with those, if at all? And if you were on track before, kind of what happened, right? Did you all of a sudden have to set that down and go rescue someone, go focus on your partner, get involved with what your kids have going on? Was work asking way too much of you? Did you have to stop and take care of someone? Kind of think about that. The things that you have been wanting to work on, accomplish, move towards, create, all that stuff. The next one is, what about your money? How's that going? You know, that great discipline, that budgeting you had going on, your goals that you said you wanted to meet financially. Where's your self-care here? On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being fabulous, 1 being awful, where would you put it and why? Now, there are things that happen to us, of course, things outside of our control, but I want you to honestly evaluate. Is that why you're off track? Or is it because you've let that slide because something else became more important? Do you even have time during the week to sit and think about money? What about your time? Do you feel that it's balanced? Or is it disproportionately spent either with one person, focused on their stuff, making sure they're all good, or maybe at work, maybe giving too much at work, or on the kids, or on your sister who can't get her shit together? I mean, where is your time? Is it balanced between things you have to do, downtime for yourself, and then time to plan and create? What about your emotional energy? What have you been feeling lately? Do you feel tired? Do you even know? What are your feelings connected to? Look at what's going on in your life. If you are feeling overwhelmed, anxious, tired, drained, fatigued, yes, it's pandemic time. We all have a little bit of that, but I want you to really evaluate what's going on around you. And what are you trying to fix, or do you need to detach and let that person fix their stuff and you can focus back on yours? So look at where your emotional energy is. A big one is your needs. Are you meeting them? Really? And I want to know how specifically you're doing that. Because boy, we can say whatever, can't we? Like, it needs to be quantifiable, I think, and not vague. It needs to be happening. It needs to be at least scheduled and committed to, and not pushed off the schedule because someone else needs something. Is it happening on the regular? And I mean that. Not every 6 months when we feel like we've hit a wall and all of a sudden we have to take a day off or start eating right or whatever. So where are your needs? What about your intuition? Like, what is your gut saying about now or about lately? Have you been pushing away those gentle nudges maybe that you know are right but don't want to follow because of where they might lead? And what I mean by that is we're afraid to look at it. We don't want it to be true, whatever it may be. We don't want to admit some things to ourselves. Like maybe we are giving too much in this relationship. Maybe we have let ourselves down and we don't want to admit that. Because then what kind of can would that open, especially about the other person that we've been hyper-focused on? Because then we really got to sit and do some work around that. Or maybe we've done it again. Maybe you've picked someone yet again that drained all your energy and didn't give to you what you give to them. What about your stuff? Are things falling by the wayside? Like, when was the last time you had time to sit and plan, like we've been talking about? Are you suffering in any area because of neglecting these things? And maybe they're causing stress and chaos and probably more problems and no doubt some self-loathing along with it. Because that isn't how you've wanted to treat yourself. And speaking of treating yourself, where's your self-nurturing? Where's your time for you? Where's your self-compassion? Where's your downtime to do whatever you want? To relax, to have fun, or just enjoy? And who takes good care of you in your relationships? Are most of your relationships mutually caring in that way? I'm not talking about when you have young children. That's different. And we got to be very careful we don't try to get our needs met from them. But your grown-up relationships, are they mutually nurturing? Or are they one-sided? And are you taking good care of you? We have to take the responsibility of taking care of ourselves. Okay. All right. So just pay attention to what came up for you. Don't be hard on yourself. Just look at it as information. It is the reality, and that's okay. We can make changes. That's what's wonderful. And the thing to remember, too, in terms of being nice to yourself, is self-abandonment, I think, is such a sneaky, slippery slope. It's so insidious. And it's so easy to slip back into old survival behavior of looking to others to meet all your needs or losing yourself in relationships. You don't do it with a grand gesture so it doesn't hit you upside the head. It happens bit by bit, day by day, moment by moment. And you can pretend that there are other things that you're doing other than abandoning yourself. That's why it's important to know how to keep it from happening or getting worse, at least, if it's started. I think the biggest thing is to try your best to stay out ahead of it. How do you do that? Well, you keep checking in on it and you keep a vigilant eye on it. If this is a propensity of yours to lose yourself in relationships, then just like having a chronic medical condition that you have to manage, I would strongly encourage you to manage it just like you would that. So you keep checking in and you let a few other healthy people in, or you get a coach who you can check in with, and you have to be accountable as to how that's going. The next thing you want to do is make sure you keep focusing on what you need throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month. It's not selfish, guys. I mean, we can take really good care of what we need while also choosing to be there for what others need us to be there for when appropriate. We can do both. Make sure throughout your day you're doing the no wonder exercise. No wonder I need that. No wonder I need a nap. I'm really tired. No wonder I need a break. It's been a really crazy week. No wonder I need to hang out with people. I feel kind of isolated lately. Take responsibility for getting needs met in healthy ways, because this is how we stay grounded, and not to look to others to make it all okay for us. And that's the danger when people get into either a new relationship, like a romantic relationship or a friendship, or maybe a new work relationship. They can put all their eggs in that basket without even realizing it, okay? And we don't want to do that. We want to take responsibility for our own needs the best we can. Like security needs, like Maslow's scale. Okay, how do we make sure that we're meeting those? Well, keep an eye on your self-discipline. Are you in reality? If not, people around you are going to start looking at you funny because they're going to see you're not in reality I want you to keep an eye on that. Are you taking time for planning? And are you taking care of things proactively so that you have security? So, in other words, you're not blowing up your job because you're spending too much time on the phone trying to solve your sister's problems. You're not giving people money that you don't have any business giving so that you have some financial security. Things like that. And what about self-esteem needs? It means focusing on your inner voice as much as you can. You got to take time to get quiet to do that. So we can't be super busy doing everything for everyone if we want to have time to listen to ourselves, to our truth. You already know that journaling helps with that, or any type of healing work or meditation, therapy, coaching, all that stuff is wonderful. And finally, belongingness. This is a big deal. People aren't as prone to getting into unhealthy relationships or getting manipulated by a new partner, let's say, if they have some strong people around them that they're connected to and that they check in with often, like some good friends. I don't care if it's just one or two people, a group or two of real people also who really know you and will support healthy for you and won't support you losing yourself. The next thing we need to keep an eye on is stop the rescuing. How do you do that? Well, get honest about the outcomes you fear or are secretly trying to control. That's hard to admit. But get vulnerable about why and share with someone safe who isn't going to judge you. Sit with that reality and allow yourself to grieve it instead. Like, if this doesn't work out, how is that going to feel for you? And what are you terrified of? Then spend some time with you detaching for a little bit. Get grounded again so you can get clear. Pull back on the behaviors of rescuing without lashing out at the person you're trying to rescue. Sometimes that can be hard. You can take your frustration out on them and it's not their fault. Own it. Next thing is stop the people-pleasing. Find ways to change your mind while being gracious. Sit with your fear. Own it. Own what your motivation is when you say yes to something or no to something. Rescind offers unless they'll be hurtful to others, okay? If you've put too much on your plate, it's okay to go back to a person or two and say, I'm really sorry, I shouldn't have said yes, I had no business. Now, we don't want to do this to people all the time. It's not fair to them, and they won't trust us after a while. But maybe we need to feel the shitty for doing that, right? Because it's awful. You have to go back and say, I know I said I could do that for you, but I can't. Our integrity can take a hit with that. So a couple times it may really sting to do that, but maybe that's a good growth point. I don't know. And the big thing is stop yourself before you say yes to anything else. So if you're already feeling overwhelmed, no more goes on your plate. And then you have to have some accountability, someone who you have to check in with, where they check in with you every week and say, okay, what else did you put on your plate and what are you doing that for? Or when are you going to find time to do that? So before you say yes to something for yourself, you have to also check, can I do this? Like, do I have business saying yes? And how do I know that in reality? Like, really? Not, oh yeah, I can get it done, I'm fine. No, I'm saying in reality. Almost like you have to prove your thesis, okay? That can really help. And finally, practice assertiveness in whatever ways you can. You can do that without being insensitive or selfish. Assertiveness is not selfish or insensitive. In fact, it respects that other people have boundaries too. You can say things graciously like, I'm so sorry that doesn't work for me. Or unfortunately, I won't be able to help you today, but I'd be happy to help you tomorrow. And the thing is working on all this stuff, guys, you can't do it alone. If you don't already have a coach for that, get one so that you can have loving encouragement and accountability. Let the healthy people in your life know what's going on. Not to judge you, but just to hold you accountable to yourself. So as you can see, not abandoning ourselves in relationships and not rescuing others and not people pleasing is all about boundaries. That's why I'm such a big boundaries girl. But you already knew that, didn't you? It's all about stepping back and setting limits with you this time. That reality isn't going anywhere, people. And when you get yourself into the controlling crazies, you become like an addict, right? And you need to put down the drug of others and of outcomes and be with you. Set limits around your time and money, your energy you've been spending on them. Set limits around being very honest with yourself and those who need to know who will hold you accountable to yourself in a loving way. So today we got honest. We got honest about some of the ways we can hide in our relationships, even to the extent that we lose who we are and we create enmeshment, which just leads to resentment and burnout. We talked about self-abandonment and the different ways we can play that out. When we do these things, we aren't being vulnerable, and especially aren't being emotionally honest with ourselves or others, because we're afraid of being authentic, and we're afraid of risking loss. Maybe they'll be mad at us, maybe they'll walk away, who knows? But we know this hurts our connections, and at the end of the day, hurts our self-esteem. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you got some valuable information out of this. May you stay healthy, grounded, hold on to who you are. Find some good this week. If you found some good, hit me up on social media and let me know what you found. Be sure to check the show notes at ownitpowercast.com. Sign up for the newsletter that comes out each Tuesday. All right, so pay it forward. Keep focusing on you, and see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you could begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now, so you can really own it later.